Hello everybody, my name is Omega Zero, and before I begin with Chapter 3 of Maternal Instinct, I want to say a few things. First off, I will no longer be doing Let's Plays on this channel. Now the reason for that being is because I realized when I did the first two chapters of Maternal Instinct, they were pretty much my most popular videos of 2016, and a lot of people ended up watching it. I had over 200 views on both of them and roughly less than 600 views combined. And for my channel coming back in October 2015, becoming a Let's Play channel and doing just Let's Plays that were that only had less than 100 views each, that is more than double of my regular numbers. So I realized that I can no longer do Let's Plays. There's pretty much no market in it for me, and I just need to stick with doing fan fiction readings. And I realized that not a lot of people are doing that. In fact, I've only saw one person read Maternal Instinct, and I don't want to throw shade on anyone, but it wasn't that good. Like, he didn't sound like he had the voice to be doing that kind of thing. And after watching my videos and hearing myself talk, I know that seems kind of egotistical, but it's a realization that I came to that I kind of learned a few things from watching behind the scenes stuff with professional voice actors. To throw out a few names, Sean Schemmel and Christopher Sabat. They're well-known names. Watching a few behind-the-scenes stuff from Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, I actually got to learn a few things from voice actors, and watching other YouTubers, other big-name YouTubers like Markiplier, like Jacksepticeye, PewDiePie, I am learning how to present myself as far as talking to a large audience. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but it is a big deal for me at this point because I like YouTube. I like doing his videos. I haven't done these in a long time, but I enjoy what I do even though I don't get paid to do it. And I want to keep doing it. I don't want to suddenly stop and not do this anymore like I did, I think, 7 years ago when I stopped doing the Mega Man Legends AMV Hell series, which, in my opinion, made me laugh a good while, and it was just a perfect example of what someone can do when they put their creative mind to something, and that's what I want to do with this. I want to bring my experience and take what I've learned from video editing and from just a few pointers that I've absorbed from professional voice actors and implement that into these videos, into these fan fiction readings. And I want to keep doing this. I want to keep doing this series, this story, because I find it interesting. I like it. It's a great read, and if you want to read it, you can click in the link in the description below to read it yourself on your own time, or you can wait until you're graced with my voice. I know, again, that sounded kind of egotistical, but when you feel like you've got the voice, go ahead and get it out there. But anyway, as far as Let's Plays, again, I said I will not be doing those anymore. And as you can see in the video, this is actually from a live stream I did on Twitch. I was playing Mega Man Legends as part of one of my streams. And as far as that, you can go to Twitch, to my channel, by clicking on the link in the description below, or going to twitch.tv/realomega000. I'll be doing at least one stream a month, or not one stream a month, one stream a week, as I try to. But ultimately, this YouTube channel will be strictly, mostly fan fiction readings. Now, with that said, I've talked enough, and I will be doing some more talking. So let's get on with Chapter 3 of Maternal Instinct, entitled My Life with Kimmy. Hello, everybody. My name is Omega Zero, and welcome back to another chapter of Maternal Instinct. Now, I want to apologize in advance, as you probably heard with my intro just a moment ago. I'm having some difficulty with my microphone. It's not as clear and as sharp as it used to be, so I'm gonna try and invest in getting a new audio setup so I can do better audio, better recordings. You'll hear my voice better. Again, egotistical much? But anyways, I want to point that out a little bit. If the audio sounds a little off from my microphone, that's why. You'll know because I just told you why. So anyway, here's chapter 3 of Maternal Instinct, entitled My Life with Kimmy. A broad smile was plastered on Monique's face as she drove through the streets of Middleton. The smile was due to the fact that she was driving her own car. Her car. Not her family's, hers. Add to the fact that it was a brand new car, and she couldn't help but laugh joyfully when she thought about it. Originally, it was supposed to be a graduation present from her father, but once he found out there was a limited time deal on this particular car, he couldn't wait. So he gave it to her as an early present with the added stipulation that she keep her grades up until graduation. She had only the vaguest memories of agreeing to the deal before she jumped into the car and took it for a test drive. That test drive ended up encompassing most of the city, particularly the hotspots for most of her classmates, and more importantly, the cute guys. She was showing off, she knew, but she didn't really care. In fact, she had a right to show it off. It was a beautiful new convertible in a blazing red that perfectly matched her favorite dress. Her father had mentioned make and model, horsepower, and all the technical features she could never hope to understand. The only thing that mattered to her was that it looked good and she looked good in it. After she finished cruising around the hotspots, she decided the next thing she had to do was show it off to Kim. The girl was just going to freak when she saw it. The thought made Monique's smile go wide, so much that it threatened to split her face in half. Kim would insist on going for a ride as soon as she picked her jaw off the ground. And being such a good friend, how could she refuse? After all, how better to taunt the single men than with two available women in a red, hot convertible? "Hey, cutie," a voice called out. "Working already," she thought with a smirk. She peeked over the top of her sunglasses into the rearview mirror to get a look at her new admirer. Unfortunately, all she could see was the car he was driving. It was a blue Dodge Viper with a silver and red engine showing through the flame pattern painted on the hood. The windows were all tinted yellow, which made it harder for her to make out the driver. The fact that all the windows were up made her wonder just how he had been able to call out to her, but she shrugged it off. "You like what you see?" she called back flirtatiously. "Oh yeah, looking good," the mysterious driver complimented. "Why, thank you, I appreciate it." "Not you, the car." "Say what?" She looked into the rear view again. She saw that the driver was now closer to her rear bumper, a little too close. She stepped on the gas to try to put some distance between them, but he kept pace. So much so that she actually nudged the bumper a few times. Thankfully, it wasn't enough to cause her to swerve out of control, but it was freaking her out, especially the way he was doing it. It was almost like he was trying to nuzzle the car. She jerked the wheel to try to shake him off, but it did little good. "Come on, baby, don't be like that," he cried out. Monique almost screamed in frustration and was about to start hurling things from the glove compartment at the obsessed driver when the sounds of sirens split the air. Another look in the mirror confirmed that the police car-style Lamborghini was coming up fast on the Viper behind her, red lights flashing brightly. She smiled broadly at the black and white car, and even more so when it forced the other driver to the side of the road. Once she was out of danger, she slowed her car down as well, and wondered if she could stop completely in case the officer needed her to make a statement. As she stared back at the police car, two things stuck out as odd in her mind. One, it had Japanese writing on its door, and two, most importantly, there was no one driving it. In fact, looking more closely at the Viper, she could finally make out why the driver had been so hard to see. There was none. She stared a second longer before she flipped her shades back up and hit the gas again. "I did not just see that," she told herself firmly. The rest of the trip was thankfully uneventful, and her earlier excitement returned as she pulled up to Kim's house. She practically jumped out of the car once it was parked in front of the possible residence and sprinted up to the door. When she was sure she was ready, she rang the bell. It only took a moment for Mrs. Possible to answer the door. "Oh, hi, Monique," she greeted cheerfully. "Hey, Mrs. Possible, is Kim here?" Monique asked, barely containing her excitement. "Well, she is, but it's fine, Mom." Kim's voice spoke from behind her. "Are you sure?" "Positive." Kim's mother looked at her for a second, then nodded and left the two girls alone, leaving Monique in a slight state of confusion. It was quickly forgotten when she remembered why she dropped by, and her face cracked with a smile once again. "Girl, I have a big surprise for you," she exclaimed cheerfully. "Really? 'Cause I have one too, actually," Kim replied sheepishly. "Mine first, close your eyes." Kim quirked an eyebrow at the odd request, but complied nonetheless. She then felt Monique grab her wrist and lead her outside. From how far they walked, she could tell they stopped near the curb when her friend told her to open her eyes. When she did, she found Monique leaning on the door to a brand new convertible with a look of pride on her face that told Kim everything she needed to know. Still, she was amazed by it all. "How?" she managed to say after a few seconds. "My dad got it for me," Monique explained happily. "It was supposed to be a graduation present, but, well, let's just say things worked out in my favor." "No kidding," Kim said as she ran her fingers along the door's edge. "It's spanking." "I know! Come on, let's go cruise around town and tease some guys." Kim faltered a bit at the suggestion. She turned to her friend with a downcast look. "I'm sorry, Monique, but I can't," she said. Monique wanted to kick herself for being so stupid. Of course Kim wouldn't want to go cruising for guys with her because the girl is still reeling from her breakup with Ron. She mentally cursed herself as she stepped closer to Kim and placed an apologetic hand on her friend's shoulder. "Sorry, girl, that was stupid of me," she said softly. "I shouldn't have brought that up so soon after." "Yeah," Kim sighed in acknowledgement of what she was talking about. "That is part of it, but there's something else now, too." "Oh?" Monique gave her a sideways glance. "It's actually my big surprise, but I think we should talk about it inside." This time it was Monique's turn to be confused and lead away in good faith as she followed Kim back into the house. The distressed look on her friend's face told her something big was up. Or at least she thought it had to be big to cause Kim to seem so worried. It reminded her of a lot of when she first broke up with Ron, actually. Whatever it was, she was determined to be there for her friend. Maybe she couldn't go with her on world-saving missions, but at the very least she could provide a shoulder to lean on. When she entered the possible household, she was greeted with an unusual sight. A dark-haired, pale green-skinned woman dressed in a black and green catsuit came walking groggily through the living room. She only made slight muttering noises to acknowledge either of their presences before she disappeared into the kitchen. Monique watched in stunned confusion, then turned to Kim, who only looked embarrassed and uncertain. She looked back to where the woman had gone and peeked around the corner to try and get another look at her. She could swear she had seen her before. "Kim, isn't that the woman whose picture you have in your locker?" she asked, pointing towards the kitchen. "A picture on a wanted poster?" "Well, yeah," the redhead admitted sheepishly. "Look, you better sit down for this. It's a long story, and I'm not sure even I believe it when I really think about it." Monique's confusion only grew, but again she trusted her friend and sat down on the couch, Kim sitting next to her. When they settled in, Kim explained as best as she could how the other woman, Shego, had ended up pregnant with a child that was partial hers thanks to Dr. Dragon's screw-up and was now going to be living with her family, at least until the baby was born. Monique just stared blankly and blinked several times as she tried to process the information. Her best friend was going to be a father to a baby that was being carried by a woman who used to work for her arch rival and constantly beat her up, all the while trying to finish up the last year of high school, including cheer squad and her other after-school activities, and, knowing Kim, still doing the world saver bit. When she was finally able to wrap all that around her brain, there was only one thing she could say. Wow, you sure beat my surprise. Kim was silent for a moment before laughing loudly. It was such a strong laughter that she had to hold onto her sides and fall back onto the couch. She didn't know why she was laughing so loudly, and she didn't really care either. After all that had happened to her yesterday, it was good to feel something other than confusion and anxiety. The fit lasted nearly 2 minutes, and when it finally subsided, she looked up at Monique, who now looked even more concerned for her. She sat back up on the couch and shook her head in an attempt to calm her friend. I'm sorry, she said, wiping a tear away from my eye. I know it wasn't that funny, it's just that... She paused and sighed. This has all been a lot to take in, so I'm kind of out of it. Just as long as you're made out of your mind, I think I can deal with it, Monique replied. Thanks. Like you say, no big, she paused. So did you tell Ron about this yet? He was there when she told me. Oh, so how'd he take it? Well, she started, and ran a hand nervously through her hair. We didn't really get much time to talk about it. Like I said, it all happened pretty quickly. I think he was just as freaked out as I was. But you were able to get this girl to the hospital and bring her back to convince your family to stay with you, the other girl said in a matter-of-factly voice. Yeah, I guess I was. Didn't really think about it though, it all just sort of happened. Like I was an automatic or giving it your natural Kimness. Kim gave her an indignant look. You know, when you and Ron say it like that, it sounds like a bad thing. She then fell back into the couch. But you're right, I didn't really think it through, I just sort of reacted. And now you're starting to regret it? Well, not really. It's just, I really don't know what I'm going to do. It is a lot to deal with, the dark-haired girl agreed. She looked over at her friend and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. But hey, I'm here for you, and even though there's still some weirdness there, I'm sure Ron will be too. You're right, Kim nodded, feeling relieved for the first time since the other day. Monique nodded as well, as if she were allowing Kim to feel relieved. The two slipped into a somewhat comfortable silence, knowing that there was a lot that Kim was probably feeling overwhelmed about. Who wouldn't? Monique slipped an arm around her best friend and drew her into a hug. Actions speak louder than words, they say, and what better way to show support than a comforting hug? Kim was naturally surprised by the gesture, but returned it all the same. Aw, how sweet, a snide voice remarked behind him. I think I'm gonna be sick. Kim withdrew from the hug and glared at the person who made the offhanded comment. I know you don't like showing emotion, Shego, but you don't have to be, she started, but was caught off by the woman in question. No, I'm really going to be sick, Shego replied, holding a hand over her mouth and looking greener than usual. Bathroom? Down the hall, second door to your left. She ran out the room without another word, leaving the two friends alone once again. Monique stared at the spot the green-skinned woman had been standing in a moment longer before she turned back to Kim. I gotta ask, what's with that outfit? She asked. It's a supervillain thing. I never really understood it either, Kim replied with a shake of her head. I think it's the only thing she has to wear, which will probably be a problem later on when she finished her thought by making a curving motion over her stomach. Yeah, it does look kind of constricting. Monique's eyes suddenly lit up. Ooh, girl, I just had a brainstorm. We make a quick Club Banana run and help your girl get some new outfits. Ones that aren't skin tight and multicolored. Kim scrunched her nose at the thought. I don't know. That seems like it might be a bad idea. Although, she will need maternity clothes sooner or later. If they even have maternity clothes at Club Banana. You know, it's funny, we don't sell those, but we do sell baby clothes. They're in our plantains line. Taking the banana thing a little too far, aren't we? Hey, it wasn't my idea. Well, anyway, I'm not sure how much that will help us, though. She placed a finger on her chin and thought. I suppose it wouldn't hurt to look at some baby clothes now, just to see what's out there. And Shego could use some normal clothes to wear. I guess we'll just have to look elsewhere for maternity clothes. You could always try, Monique started, but Kim cut her off. Do not say Smarty Mart. I was going to suggest JB Nichols. You know, they have some maternity things. Oh, Kim replied, embarrassed. Sorry, I guess I was expecting a wrong answer. Don't worry, but if anyone asks, I did not tell you about it. It looks kind of bad when an employee tells one of our best customers to go to another store. My lips are sealed. Right after the agreement was made, Shego came back into the room, a little worse for wear. She made a few grunting noises towards Kim and Monique before she plopped down into the recliner usually reserved for Kim's father. Kim was about to correct on it, but pushed it back for later. Instead, she decided to check on the woman's well-being. How are you feeling? She asked. A little better, but I gotta say I'm not looking forward to throwing up most of what I eat. You're out of mouthwash, by the way, Shego replied. I guess we'll have to pick some up while we're out. The older woman arched an eyebrow at the same. Oh, going somewhere are you? Yes, we, Kim started, inclining her head towards Shego, are going out to get you some new clothes. Really? And when did we come to this decision? Shego, please, you're going to need maternity clothes eventually anyway, and while you're staying here, it's probably best if you don't wear that thing. The redhead made a vague gesture towards the green and black catsuit. Hey, I'll have you know that this is a very stylish look. Yeah, of bad taste. Honey, I wouldn't be talking out of taste if I was wearing a lime green tank top. Ooh, Monique grimaced. Kim only glanced her a sideways glance, then returned her attention to Shego. This from a woman in a skin-tight unitard, she continued. At least I'm not wearing boy pants. Kim looked like she was going to say something, but stopped and calmed herself with a shake of the head. She looked at Shego again and spoke in the calmest voice she could muster. Look, we're going to go to the mall and you can pick out whatever you want. I don't care. But we have to get maternity clothes. And so we won't arouse any more suspicion, I'll let you borrow some of my clothes for the day. I think we're about the same size. Just one question, Shego said. What? Kim asked through gritted teeth. Since when did I become your new sidekick to boss around? I am not bossy, the redhead shouted, then turned to Monique. Monique, am I bossy? Oh no, I'm not getting in the middle of this one, she replied, shaking her head and waving her hands. Well, she's smarter than your other sidekick, Shego remarked. Again, Kim found herself at a loss for words, and merely let out a frustrated scream before marching off to her room. Shego looked at Monique with a smug smile. She knew the girl probably couldn't understand what had just happened, but she took much satisfaction in the fact that, in some way, she had won a fight with Kim possible. Unfortunately, she also knew the princess was right. She needed something else besides her usual outfit to wear, especially for when she started showing. Of course, that meant admitting Kim had won in a way too, and she was definitely not going to let her know that. She would just find a way to make it seem like she really wanted to go to the mall all along and just couldn't help but have a little fun with the girl. Yes, that would work perfectly. The other thing she was definitely not going to do was wear anything of Kimmy's. She had seen some of the outfits the girl wore on missions. Hell, the mission clothes themselves left something to be desired, and none of it was right for her. Even if it was just for a few hours for one day, there was no way she was ever going to wear them. Not no way, not no how. Well, this is embarrassing, Shego thought in dismay. She looked down at herself and again shuddered in disgust. After a prolonged verbal battle, Kim had finally convinced her to wear one of the younger woman's outfits, mostly due to her trump card, the puppy dog pout. Even with as cold as she could be at times, Shego was just unable to say no to that face. It was just so... She couldn't really think of what it was, but it was almost impossible to turn down whatever request it wanted. If she was going to live with Kim for 9 months, she'd have to find some way around it. Her father seemed to be able to shoot it down rather quickly. Maybe she could ask him for advice. That was a thought for later though. Her more immediate problem involved her state of dress. She was convinced Kim had picked out this particular outfit just to spite her. The first major flaw of it was that it was mostly pink. Pink pants and a white t-shirt with a pink heart on the front. She had always hated pink. It just seemed way too girly. Not that she ever saw herself as a true tomboy time, but pink just seemed too stereotypical. Not to mention the fact that the pale green and pink just didn't mix well at all. The other problem was that Kim had only been guessing that they were about the same size. For the most part they were, but Shego was slightly more developed than Kim. Thus the shirt clung rather tightly to her bosom and showed off slightly more than just her midriff. In fact, pretty much all of her stomach was exposed. She looked down again and ran a hand over her flat stomach subconsciously. Thank God I'm not showing yet, she mused. As much as the shirt seemed small and tight on her, the pants actually seemed to fit as well as they did on Kim. This just made her wonder how the girl avoided having her pants fall off as much as the buffoons did. There was a big enough gap in front that Shego felt if she moved the wrong way, she'd be exposing more than just her stomach. Thankfully, Kim had also let her borrow a pair of panties to keep such things from happening. Or at least being less embarrassing. Actually, when she thought about it, she believed Kim said she could let her keep that pair. It left Shego feeling a little insulted by the insinuations. That could be dealt with later though. Her immediate concern was the people pointing and staring at her. Thankfully, the usual hustle and bustle of a mall on Saturday kept most of the other consumers from really noticing her. But the few that did made her feel self-conscious. It wasn't the actual staring that bothered her, she was used to it by now, but rather the clothes she had on making her feel too exposed. Her suit may conform to her every curve, but at least it covered all of her body, which Kim's clothes most definitely do not. Again, it was not as if she had worn a few risque outfits or swimsuits in the past, but that when she had control of the situation. At those times, she wanted people to notice her body, but not a crowded public setting like this. She was nervous that all the attention might cause some law enforcement personnel to realize who she was. After all, there weren't many pale green-skinned, black-haired, plasma-spewing women walking around. She nearly leapt for joy when she, Kim, and Monique reached Club Banana, but settled for simply darting into the store. It had little to do with the clothes inside and more about the fact that it offered her a place to hide if need be. Though the clothes were still appealing, and it was the reason she was there after all. She did a quick sweep of the store to see if any police officers or undercover global justice agents were watching her, and when she was sure it was safe, she began to look through the clothing selection. As she thought there were some good choices around, things that looked flattering on her before she started showing, and after the birth if she had her way. Unfortunately, she wasn't the only one making the decision. Far too soon for Shego's tastes, Kim came over and began suggesting ideas on what kind of clothes she should buy. This naturally led to another fight between the two of them. In fact, most of the intended shopping spree was taken up by their almost constant bickering. Most of it consisted of Shego telling Kim not to boss her around, and Kim saying she was only trying to help. The back and forth pattern continued for almost an hour, twin sets of emerald eyes burning brightly as they glared into one another. It only escalated when they looked through the baby clothes. Aside from Shego saying it was much too early to be thinking of that, she also refused anything that had even the slightest bit of pink on it. Kim thought it was traditional, while Shego thought it was stereotypical. The fight that ensued over that nearly brought mall security into play, before Monique was able to calm the two down. After much bickering, the two finally agreed on a rather extensive wardrobe for Shego. And by agreeing, that of course meant Shego ignoring all of Kim's suggestions and going with what she wanted to buy. Even more distasteful to the younger redhead was the fact that Shego paid for her items with a credit card tied to one of her various bank accounts. Accounts Kim cared little for since they were filled with money either stolen or given as payment for evil deeds. Both options made her skin crawl slightly at the thought of it being used to help her child. Sadly, she had little option at the moment, but she swore to herself that she would change by the time the baby was born. By the time the outing was finished, the most worn out of the group was Monique. Having to be the referee for the two spirited women made her remember some of the babysitting jobs she had with bickering siblings, or rather more like an old married couple. Either way, keeping them from tearing each other's throats out was an exhausting job, and she was looking forward to going home and resting for a bit. Idly, she wondered if she was going to be able to provide Kim the support she could need through this ordeal, but rationalized it by telling herself she would be better prepared next time. Still, she hoped the two would learn to behave around each other real quick. As the trio left Club Banana and walked through the rest of the mall, they failed to notice the set of eyes staring at them in malicious glee. Even Shego's well-trained vision had missed Kim's other rival, but having never seen or heard of the girl before, how could she know to pay attention to the brunette? The same girl that was currently watching them and who was wearing a smile more devious than anything she could come up with. Just as Shego was nervous about people watching her in the mall, so too was Kim, worried about her classmates staring at her as she sat down at her usual table in the lunchroom. In her case, it was slightly more justified though, as many of them actually were watching her. For the most part, it had to do with her choice of lunchtime company, specifically one Ron Stoppable. It wasn't odd to see the two together by any means, but given what happened between them, most of the students assumed they would keep their distance for a while. That had been true for the most part. During the last half of the summer, but by the time school started, they worked out the differences to the point where they could be friends again. What made the situation the most frustrating and confusing was the fact that it was the talk of the school. In fact, their entire relationship, from the kiss they shared at the dance last year to their breakup, was a hot topic, even going so far as to have an article written about them in the school paper. Like most things in high school, the other kids seemed to prefer spreading rumors amongst themselves rather than ask either of them what actually happened. Some of the rumors said Kim had been too bossy towards Ron, while others suggested that Ron wasn't able to hold Kim's interests. Some had him cheating on her with Monique, while some had her cheating on him with some super stud she might have met in another country. The most accurate were the ones that implied things just didn't work out between them. Fortunately, those rumors were the most prevalent and generated a great deal of sympathy for the duo, mostly due to the general idea that what they had was the true love scenario. A guy and a girl who were best friends all their lives finally realizing their true feelings for each other and falling in love. It was supposed to be a happy ending, but it seemed things didn't always turn out the way they were supposed to. The odd side effect of it all was that Ron suddenly became a veritable girl magnet. Girls that wouldn't give him a second look before, or a first one for that matter, were now casting sidelong glances his way during classes, and especially here at lunch. Even some of the girls who had turned him down before admitted they had been wrong and apologized. For some reason, it seemed that not being able to hold on to the great Kim possible made Ron more attractive to the girls of Middleton High, so was that whenever the two would take their seats in the cafeteria, they were met with stares from other students, ranging from sympathetic to confusion, and in some cases flirtatious. While Kim usually felt a little uncomfortable and self-conscious under their gazes, today she hardly noticed them. Instead, she seemed fixated on the mushy noodles and discolored globs of meat that the lunch lady claimed was spaghetti and meatballs. She sighed as she absent-mindedly pushed the noodles around in her watery sauce with her fork. "What's wrong, KP?" The voice broke through the haze in her mind and caused her to look up at the person who asked the question. There she saw both Ron and Monique giving concerned looks. Even Rufus took time out from his snacking to see if she was alright. She felt a little embarrassed by all the attention and tried not to nonchalantly wave it off. "It's nothing, you guys," she said half-heartedly. "Really, no big." "Really? Nothing at all? Like an evil psychic carrying your virus-created baby?" Ron asked suspiciously. "No, of course not. That is so not the drama." Ron and Monique looked at each other, unconvinced. "Alright, it is a big, and it's so the drama," Kim admitted after a moment and laid her head down on the table. She then tilted her head so that only her eyes showed and stared at the two sadly. "Help me." "Hey, come on, Kim," Ron said, placing a comforting hand on hers. "We're here for you. I mean, I may not agree with it and find the whole thing sick and wrong, but I'm here for you." "Believe that, girlfriend," Monique added sympathetically. "I'm here for you 100. I mean, who was it that took you and that Shego girl shopping over the weekend? And who kept you two from tearing each other's heads off?" "That was you," Kim replied softly. "And who was it that was there for you when you took her to the hospital?" Ron asked. "That was you, but you said we should just leave her and run. As far and as fast as we can, if I remember correctly." "Hey, I panicked," he stated in his own defense. "I mean, it was a weird and potentially dangerous situation, and I tried to avoid those." "Since when?" she asked, now sitting upright. Since since it started to involve Shego having your baby through some weird dragon thing. I mean, you gotta admit, that's weird even for us. Yeah, I know, but this is gonna happen either way. And I guess, you guess what, Monique asked. I guess that it all just kinda hit me at once today. I mean, I'm going to be a mother, or father, or whatever. The point is, I'm going to have to raise a child. With Shego, no less, Ron pointed out before he took a bite of the meatball and his fork. And that's another thing, Kim sighed and ran her hand through her hair nervously. I have to try to get her to calm down. Not only is she actually going to be giving the birth to a baby, she's also going to be living with my family. I just need to keep her from being so Shego-like, Ron offered. Yeah, when I bring up the subject of her being a little less Shego-like, she starts in with the shouting and fussing, Monique guessed. Yeah, Kim agreed again and sighed. I just don't know what to do. This whole thing is just so overwhelming. I want my child to be born and grow up safely. I know I can assure that, but Shego, I don't know. You could always fight for sole custody. Given your past, and especially Shego's, I'm sure the courts would be on your side, Ron suggested. I probably could, but it doesn't seem right. The baby is Shego's as much as mine, and I don't want to take it away from her. Hey Kim! A new voice spoke from behind her. Kim's body stiffened at the sound of the voice, and she slowly turned around in her chair to come face to face with her other arch-rival, Bonnie Rockwaller. The devilish look on the brunette's face told Kim that the girl was ready to lay into her with her latest dig. Something she was definitely not in the mood for. Not now, Bonnie, she growled, turning back around. I just wanted to say how sorry I was for missing you at the mall on Saturday, Bonnie started, voice dripping with malicious glee. Oh no, Kim thought in horrified realization. But I did manage to catch you there with Monique and some other woman, who I believe you're shopping for clothes for. I couldn't really tell over all the fighting you're doing, though if you ask me, it looked more like a lover's spat. So what happened? Stoppable mess you up so bad that you just gave up on men altogether? Is Little Miss Perfect playing for the other team now? And what about the baby clothes? Is there something else you're hiding? Halfway through, Kim had closed her eyes and tried her best to tone the obnoxious girl out. But her friends could tell by the way she was shaking with anger and gripping the table hard enough to break out her fingers, it wasn't working. They tried to intervene to keep the scene from turning ugly, but it was too late. Bonnie, shut up, Kim said in a soft, dangerous tone. What was that? Bonnie continued on, oblivious to the situation. Didn't quite catch that, Kay. I apologize in advance. This is gonna be rest in peace headphones at this part. I apologize. I said shut up! She shouted, jumping out of the chair and getting right in the brunette's face. I'm tired of hearing this! In fact, everyone's tired of hearing this! I've never understood what your problem with me is, and to be honest, I don't care! Neither does anyone else, if you haven't noticed. Ever since the dance last year when you tried to make fun of Ron and I for finally becoming a couple. Or do you not remember how everyone basically shunned you? How they've been shunning you ever since we got back? Even when we broke up and you tried again to rally people to your cause, you failed. You want to know why? Because everyone's just sick of it. They finally realized that this attitude of yours doesn't make you cool or popular. It just makes you mean-spirited and petty. Not to mention pathetic. And that's what you are, Bonnie. You're just pathetic. Instead of sniping back with a witty reply or a cutting remark, Bonnie instead stood there in silence with her mouth hanging up and her eyes as big as saucers. This sentiment, and in some cases expression, was shared by the rest of the cafeteria as they simply stared upon the red-headed girl dumbfounded. It was widely known that she could be quick to anger. She was a redhead after all. But this outburst stunned them all. The person feeling the most effect from it was of course Bonnie. She tried several attempts at a comeback, but her mouth just flapped up and down uselessly. This was not the way it was supposed to go. She would make some snide remark, Kim would make one back, and they would continue for a bit and then go their separate ways. But the attack Kim just laid on her was too much. There was no way she could respond to it. Mostly because she knew it was true. Ever since the dance last year, she became the school's new pariah. Everyone turned against her. Her friends, the cheer squad, even the freshmen knew to avoid her. Where she was once one of the most popular girls in school, now she was part of its outcasts. Even they wouldn't take her in after the way she treated them for years on end. So, knowing she had been beaten, Bonnie simply sighed and slumped her shoulders as she walked off and found an open and empty table. Kim continued to stare at Bonnie until she sat down, and then finally turned back to her own table, picked up the chair, and sat down once again. When she did, she found Ron, Monique, and Rufus still giving her the wide-eyed silent treatment. "What?" she snapped. They looked at each other for a second as they silently decided who should be the one to talk to her. Not surprisingly, it was Ron. He sighed and tried to brace himself for the worst. Kim, don't you think that was a little much? I mean, I know Bonnie's a pain and all, but," he said it gently. "She asked for it," Kim replied. "Besides, I have enough to worry about right now, not having to put up with Bonnie being, well, Bonnie." "I know that, but the way you handled it was kinda what?" "Shego-like," he offered, ducking his head down a bit. Shego," Rufus agreed. This time it was Kim's turn to stare in open-mouthed shock. She obviously didn't think about it at the time, but looking back now, the reaction did seem more along the lines of how Shego would have handled it. This thought scared her more than anything she could remember. She thought that being around Shego would be a positive influence on the pale-skinned woman. But what if it was actually a negative influence on her? What if instead of calming down and acting more like Kim actually started acting more like Shego? She shook her head violently at the idea. "No, that won't happen," she muttered. "What won't happen?" Monique asked, looking very concerned at this point. It was then that Kim realized she said the last statement out loud and suddenly felt embarrassed. She looked at her two friends again and tried to shrug it off as discreetly as she could. "It's nothing, really. I can handle it," she told them. Again, Ron and Monique looked at each other with concerned expressions. Shego stood before a full-length mirror in her room in the possible household. It was one of the things she had acquired during her outing with Kim and her friend this weekend. Other items included a new stereo, a couple CDs and DVDs, and a few other things she insisted she needed. Of course, a lot of them she really didn't need, but it was fun to drag Kimmy around the mall. At least when she allowed herself to be dragged around. When she didn't, well, Shego sincerely wished she was still in a condition for a physical fight. Still, living with the possibles wasn't all that bad, especially at times like these when she had the house all to herself. She was actually amazed at how trusting the family could be just based on Kim's word. Hell, Kim trusting her was a big of a shock in itself. She was still a wanted criminal and had attacked the girl many times. For all the cheerleader knows, she could set a trap for her in her very own home. Or she could just steal whatever she wanted and take off like that. Of course, the family didn't really have anything worth stealing, and she had no place to go. Plus, there was a part of her that didn't want to betray Kim's trust. It had been a long time since anyone trusted her, let alone a former enemy, and it felt odd, but in a good way. Unfortunately, it also left her very little to do during the day when everyone else was gone. There was usually nothing good on TV during the middle of the day, and she was still trying to figure out what she could eat without immediately throwing it up afterwards. So she opted to finally do what she really didn't want to do. Put away her trademark green and black catsuit. She stood before the full-length mirror placed on the left corner of the room with the suit held in front of her. She sighed at how good it looked against her body at the moment, but knew those days were quickly coming to an end. Slowly, she moved it aside and studied her almost bare body. She was clad in only a lacy bra and matching panties that she bought during her recent outing, and also thought she looked good in. This, too, would change soon enough. That, though, drew her to the source of her worrying, her stomach. Right now, it was taut and lean, a perfect athletic build. But in a few months, it would start to bulge out and expand as the life she carried inside her grew. This too felt odd, as she always gone to great lengths to keep her body in top shape. She just couldn't picture herself with a huge gut, even if it wasn't due to fat. It would still slow her down and keep her from doing anything, really. As much as she did like to lie around and take it easy, she didn't like the idea of not being able to fight, not being able to protect herself. She especially didn't like the idea of having to depend on others for help in doing simple tasks. She hated being helpless, and that's essentially what she would be. Adding to all that worry was the fact that she had no idea how exactly to raise a child. Kim might have offered to help, but she probably didn't have any more of a clue than Shego. Maybe it was for the best she stayed here for a while after all. At the very least, she could ask Kim's parents for advice in raising a child, though that would require spending more time with them, and from what she gathered already, they were slightly odd. At least her father was. Her mother seemed pretty normal. Plus, she's gone through this 3 times before, so I'm sure she could help some, Shego thought. She then placed a hand over her stomach, something she seemed to be doing a lot lately. Not even born yet, and you're already giving me trouble. Hope this isn't going to be a pattern later on in life. Of course, knowing how I was as a kid, I wouldn't be surprised. Look, I'll make you a deal. If you promise not to act up too much, I promise not to be all overly protective and strict mom. I'm sure Kim will fill that role anyway, so I'll be the fun mom who lets you get away with just a little bit more. Sound good? Of course, she received no reply and shook her head in confusion of her own actions. She figured it was just her hormones starting to go all wonky on her. She refocused her attention on the suit in her hand and continued with what she originally had planned. She walked over to the bed, placed the outfit next to an open suitcase, and then carefully folded it up. She stowed it in a large steel suitcase next to where she had already laid out the gloves, boots, and ankle pouch. Then closed it and slid it underneath the bed. She had been so careful because she figured this would be her last suit in a long time, and she didn't want to damage it in any way because she swore to herself that someday she would wear it again. She didn't know when or in what capacity, but she would wear it again. Someday. Kim smiled as she entered the house. It always felt good to come back after a mission, mostly because it felt good to make it home from a mission. But being home also made her feel safe, relaxed. If anything, it made it seem like all the amazing things she did was part of a daily routine. Get up, get dressed, go to school, stop some crazy madman's latest take over the world scheme, come home and having dinner with the family, go to bed, and repeat the next day. When she thought about it that way, it was actually kind of humbling. This is good because it kept her from getting a swelled head, unlike a certain someone she knew, but she would worry about that later. Right now, she planned to enjoy the part of her routine where she spent time with her family, particularly a nice home-cooked meal. That is, if Shego hadn't burned it all again. That thought made her stop for a second. It had been 2 months now since she found out the ex-villain was carrying her child and invited her to live with her family. As she figured, the first few weeks had been the most difficult. Shego fought her on almost every suggestion she made, their first trip to the mall being the worst of it. From there, their arguments consisted of what she could and couldn't do, why she had to go see Dr. Anderson like she said she would, helping out around the house as much as she could, and oddly enough, a rather intense fight about astronauts versus cavemen. Of that entire list, though, house chores seemed to be the biggest problem. For all the complaining Shego did about being bored through most of the day, she was still very adamant against helping out around the house. Something about not wanting to become too domesticated and Donna Reed-like. Kim just figured it was another excuse for her to be lazy. Though the incident where she nearly burned the house down while trying to help her mother cook dinner might be proof she was telling the truth. Fortunately, she calmed down in the following weeks to the point where she was bearable. They still had the actual verbal spat, which Kim figured would go on for a long time. There was a lot of animosity between the two of them that couldn't be swept neatly under a rug just because they were having a child together. They were trying to work it all out, though, because they were having a child, and the one thing they seemed to agree on was not to mess up his life too badly. Still, she knew a few arguments would pop up from time to time, but for the most part they actually seemed to get along fairly well, considering their past relationship. Even more surprising, Shego seemed to, at the very least, be able to tolerate her family. She wasn't quite on friendly terms with them yet, especially her annoying brothers, but at least she didn't think of them as the enemy anymore. Actually, she seemed to get along with her mother quite well, which was disturbing in its own right. Again, she vanquished those thoughts and headed to her room for a quick change. As she headed back downstairs and turned into the kitchen, She detected the unmistakable meaty scent of her mother's infamous brain loaf, and she cringed just a bit. She knew it was the only way the Tweeds would eat it, but it still kind of freaked her out. Thankfully, she heard the knocking sound of a metal hitting wood, which meant her mother was most likely busy cutting vegetables for a salad or some other kind of alternative. She was grateful for that and readied herself to help her mother in the preparation if she needed it. What she was not ready for was the sight that greeted her when she entered the kitchen. It was a sight that made her stop dead in her tracks and eyes go wide in disbelief. There were not many things in this world that scared her, but this was definitely one of them. There, in her very own kitchen, stood her mom, side by side with Shego, cutting up vegetables and chatting it up like good old friends. Now she had become used to having Shego in the house and did encourage her to get to know her family more, but this was just wrong. Sick and wrong even. Something about the scene just gave off a very foreboding feel about it. One that only increased when they spotted her standing there, and Shego looked at her with a devious grin. "Well, look who's finally back," she practically purred. "Oh, hi, Kimmy," her mother half greeted. "Yes, hello, Kimmy," Shego continued, the grin growing larger. "Mom, what'd you tell her?" Kim asked, immediately growing suspicious. "I didn't tell her anything. We were just talking," Mrs. Possible replied. "About what?" "Just a story about a certain future world saver who seemed to have a problem keeping her dress on when she was much younger," Shego gushed, barely containing her laughter. "Mom!" Kim shouted, her cheeks instantly growing red. "Oh, what? I thought it was cute," Mrs. Possible said offhandedly. It was at that point that Shego completely lost it and laughed uproariously. She laid down the knife she was holding and instead held a hand against her face as she leaned her head back. Kim gritted her teeth and balled her hands into fists as she fumed over the incident. She would like nothing more than to jump over the counter and dropkick Shego in the face right now. But she knew she couldn't do that. Instead, she took a deep, calming breath and thought of another way she could retaliate. "And exactly what are you doing in the kitchen, Shego? I thought you were banned after that whole barbecue incident," she said. That got Shego's attention. She stopped laughing immediately and glared at the younger woman. "Hey, that was one time, and I've been getting better ever since then," she retorted. "It's true, she has improved a bit," Mrs. Possible spoke up. "Whose side are you on, Mom?" Kim asked indignantly. "I'm not on anyone's side. I'm just stating a fact. Plus, I don't think you two should be fighting anyway. It can't be good for the baby." The statement made the two go silent, mostly because they knew she was right. They each muttered something of an apology before going about helping with dinner again. Shego returned to cutting vegetables while Kim started to set up the table. As she did so, she cast a few glances Shego's way. The pale woman had given up her usual form-fitting leotard 2 months ago and had taken to wearing regular clothes, though she kept with her black and green patterns. Currently, she was wearing an overly large dark green sweater and a pair of black sweatpants. She started wearing baggy clothing recently because she was still a little self-conscious about the fact that her pregnancy was starting to show. Part of Kim could understand it. She knew that, like her, Shego took pride in her lean, athletic appearance, but another part of her thought it was silly. There was no reason for her to be ashamed of carrying a new life, even if it did expand you a bit. In fact, some cultures thought it made women even more attractive. Of course, she knew Shego was too vain to admit that. Her head snapped up as that line of thought made her remember something that should have happened that day. "So, how did the appointment with Dr. Anderson go?" she asked. "Pretty well," Shego replied as she set the bowl of salad on the table. "Basically told me the same thing, about keeping my plasma blasts down until I absolutely have to use them, and that everything else looks pretty normal. Surprisingly." "Surprisingly? Oh, come on, this whole thing came out of one of Dragon's experiments. I can't be the only one who thought something would go wrong." "Well," Kim muttered, rubbing her left arm nervously. "Anyway," Shego spoke again, "the doc said she looks healthy enough at this stage." "She?" "Yeah," the older woman replied, slightly annoyed at the repeated questions. "Again, can't be surprised we're having a girl. Virus came from both our DNA, and we're both girls." "True, but if it's a girl, then that means no pink." "Just a little, please?" I said no. "Why, Kim, why didn't you tell your father and the boys that dinner's ready?" Mrs. Possible asked, hoping to stop another fight. Kim nodded and then went about finding the rest of her family. It didn't take them long to find their way to the kitchen table, especially her brothers, and they all quickly took their usual places with Shego sitting next to Kim. As with everything in the past 2 months, it took them a while to get used to the arrangement. but now it seemed to come naturally. Though Kim was still a little leery after a well-placed plasma burst caused her to jump and spill food all over herself. After the food was divided between them, they hesitated before they started eating. Shego looked around nervously at them and wondered if they were going to start breaking out into prayer. "What's everybody waiting on?" she whispered to Kim. "You haven't figured that out yet?" Kim whispered back in surprise. "Figured out what?" As if in response to her question, a familiar blonde-haired head appeared in the kitchen's doorway. "Hola, possible family!" Ron greeted as he stepped fully into the room. "Of course," Shego muttered. "Shego," he said curtly when he noticed her. "Here again, Stoppable? Don't you have your own family to annoy?" "Yes, but I also have an open invitation to be here whenever I want, and it just so happens that my mom's cooking can't match Mrs. Dr. P's cooking." "Oh, Ron, please," Mrs. Possible said, feeling somewhat embarrassed. "I'm sure your mother's cooking isn't that bad. I mean, you cook well enough. You've helped out here a few times." "Yeah, I know, but for some reason Mom doesn't like cooking at home," Ron explained as he took the open chair on the other side of Kim. "I think she's jealous. So let's see, you can't keep a girlfriend, you know how to cook, and you have a very phallic pet," Shego remarked, ticking each item off on a finger. "Yeah, I think I'm seeing a pattern developing here." "Hey!" Ron shouted as Rufus climbed out of his pocket. "Yeah, hey!" The small naked animal shouted as well. Shego chuckled at her own joke, but that was stopped by a quick poke in the ribs by Kim. She glared at the younger woman but did nothing else. The possible parents breathed a sigh of relief that the argument had turned into something larger, and after serving up a plate for Ron, they all began to eat. The room was soon filled with the clanking of metal against porcelain plates and the idle chatter of small talk centering on everyone's day. "Oh yeah," Ron spoke up. "That baby thing was today, right? How'd that go?" "Pretty good from what I hear," Kim answered, casting a glance at Shego. "The baby is completely healthy." "Booyah! Things going good for the possible baby. You do remember that I'm actually having the baby, right?" Shego asked sardonically. "Yeah, but I didn't think I had to worry about you because, you know, you're tough," Ron defended himself. "That's true," she said, then looked over at Mrs. Possible. "Since we're on the subject of the hospital, what's with that Dr. Cox guy? Harry? He's just..." Mrs. Possible started to reply, then stopped when she noticed Jim and Tim were listening. "Well, I better not say with the boys here." "Aww," they whined. "Maybe, but I still think it's a..." She stopped suddenly and held a hand over her mouth as her cheeks ballooned up. Without another word, she jumped from her seat and headed into the direction of the bathroom. Everyone but Ron seemed unfazed by the event. "Well, that's rude," he muttered. "Don't worry about that. It's just the baby acting up," Mrs. Possible said offhandedly. "I went through the same thing when I was pregnant with Kimmy. Couldn't keep anything down. She was so picky." "Mom, please," Kim pleaded. "Can you limit it to just one embarrassing story a day?" Ron quirked an eyebrow at the comment, but just gave him a look that told him to drop the topic or else. He complied and the group went back to their meals. After a little while, Shego walked back into the kitchen and after making a muttered, almost incomprehensible apology, walked over to the refrigerator and began pulling out a few items before she moved into the pantry for 2 slices of bread. They all watched as she put together a sandwich that was simply horrifying. "Is that..." Kim started, not sure if she could finish the sentence without having to run to the bathroom herself. "Yep, mayonnaise, pickles, ham, and a peanut butter and jelly," Shego finished, holding up the sandwich in question and defending herself by simply saying, "Cravings." "Cool!" Jim and Tim said together. "We have to try one," Jim said enthusiastically. "Yeah," Tim agreed. "Not until you finish your dinner," Mrs. Possible reprimanded, "and you're cleaning any mess you make." This seemed to dissuade the boys from trying the new confectionery concoction that they just learned about. Shego just shrugged it all off and walked out into the living room to finish her sandwich in front of the TV. Once the slight wave of nausea passed, the Possibles and Ron continued on with their own meals, eating and chatting about the day. When dinner was over, Kim helped to clear the table and then put the dishes in the dishwasher before she walked into the living room to check on Shego. She found her just finishing the last bits of her sandwich, and after scratching her face a bit, Kim sat down next to her. "Feeling better?" she asked. A little. I don't think I'll ever get used to these weird cravings, though," Shego replied, her face twisted in a bit of disgust. "Yeah, try not to talk about that too much. Just don't talk about it." Shego nodded in agreement, and the two sat in silence for a moment as they watched the TV. "So, Mom led you back into the kitchen, huh?" Kim asked slyly. "Look, I told you it was that one time. I figured out how to cook things without setting the house on fire," Shego erupted, and then folded her arms over her chest and slumped a bit. Besides, Anne's only letting me chop vegetables and stuff now anyway. Kim chuckled a bit at that, but stopped when something Shego said hit her hard. Wait, Anne? You're calling my mom Anne now? She asked incredulously. That's her name, isn't it? Shego replied. Yeah, but it's just... What happened to the whole I don't think the family thing is for me, Kimmy? The redhead asked, doing her best impression of the other woman. She just shrugged. Your family's not as irritating as mine. Well, except for your brothers. Guess I'm just finally starting to get used to it here. Although I'm still never partaking in family game night, she said sternly, then gave a shudder. Fair enough. Just as long as you try to be nicer to Ron, Kim asked sincerely. I'm making no promises. Kim sighed and leaned against the back of the couch. She supposed, for now, it was the best reply she was going to get. She just wished she knew how to get the two to find some common ground outside of her. That way, maybe she could build it up into, at the very least, a mutual understanding between the two of them, so she wouldn't have to worry about her baby being pulled into some kind of weird tug-of-war. As if she wasn't going to have enough to worry about, what with having two mothers and all. Hey KP, it's 9 o'clock. We need to switch it to... Ron exclaimed as he came marching into the room, but stopped when he spotted Shego already holding the remote. Alright lady, hand over the remote. I need to turn the channel. Shego snorted. So you can watch stupid wrestling or something? Think again, stoppable. Besides, who's the one that actually lives here? And who's the one that's known Kim since pre-K? And try not to kill her all the time? And was dating her for a while? Ron, I really don't think that's... Kim tried to say. Who's the one having her baby? Shego countered. Shego, really that's... Who's the one that helped her fight you all those years? Ron sneered. Oh, is that what you were doing? I thought you were just running around and screaming like an idiot. Please, you guys... Kim tried again. Well, at least I'm not... Whatever Ron was going to say was cut off by the announcer on the TV. It's time for American Star Maker! Oh good, this is what I wanted to see, he said, seeming to forget all about his argument, and sat down next to a relieved Kim. As the three started to watch the TV, it took a moment for the situation to really sink in. Wait a minute, you watch this? Both Ron and Shego shouted in surprise, pointing fingers at the other. Well, yeah, Ron replied. Didn't you see me almost win it that one time? Doy, I was there, Shego remarked. Besides, your competition for the night was Draken. Not really much to go up against. Well, still, I was better. Whatever, she rolled her eyes. Just be quiet, it's starting. Much to Kim's surprise, and again relief, Ron did what he was told, and they watched the show in relative silence. A smile slowly worked its way over Kim's mouth at the scene of Ron and Shego actually sitting next to each other without trying to attack each other. It looked like she found their common ground after all. It probably wasn't the best of common grounds, but at least it was a starting point. Later in the evening, Kim sat alone in her room and tapped the end of her pencil impatiently on her desk. The one thing she always hated about having a mission during the week was the fact that she usually had to end up doing her homework late at night. That was exactly what she was doing at the moment, and her sleep-deprived mind was having a hard time coming up with the answer to the problem on the page. She debated just leaving it for tomorrow morning, but that meant she'd have to get up earlier to finish it, and she wanted and needed all the sleep she could get. When the familiar tone of the communicator reached her ears, she wasn't sure whether to be happy or resentful. Seeing it as a way to get out of homework regardless, she reached over and picked up the device, turning it on as she did. What's the sitch, Wade? She asked. You got a PM on your site, the boy genius replied. Don't suppose it'll wait till morning lit? It's from Dr. Director. That got Kim's full attention. Dr. Director herself and not one of their usual contacts? She asked in disbelief. Yep, she says it's urgent and she needs to speak to you right away. And by right away you mean one of their jets is on its way to you right now. She sighed. Of course. Thanks for the heads up, Wade. She nodded before ending the transmission. Kim stood up and stretched, letting out a surprisingly long and loud yawn. She recovered quickly, then went about putting on her mission clothes just in case. She carefully made her way downstairs, out the front door, so as to not wake anyone else in the house. No sooner had she stepped onto the lawn than a Global Justice personal jet set down silently in the street. She smiled at the timing and then stepped up into the ship via the extended stairs. The smile quickly disappeared though when she came face to face with her least favorite GJ agent. Will, she half greeted. Kimberly, Will Do replied from his seat. Don't suppose you can tell me what this is all about? She asked as she took the seat across from his. Unfortunately, no. Dr. Director told me very little, just that I should be here to meet you since I'm a familiar face to you. Wonderful. I just hope this doesn't take too long. I really need to get my homework done and get some sleep. As usual with the highly trained and smug agent, he didn't say anything in response. In fact, he said almost nothing for the entire time of their flight, which thankfully for Kim was short. After touching down in one of GJ's hidden hangars, she followed as he led her through the busy halls of Global Justice Headquarters. The agents around them were much too busy to really acknowledge them, and those who did only offered quick, polite nods. Will stopped in front of a set of large metal double doors, with a gold nameplate reading Dr. Director, one right on the door. They slid open almost as soon as Kim stepped up to them and cast a glance at Will, who simply motioned for her to go inside. She hesitated for a second, but did as she was instructed and walked into the large, spacious room. While most of the gray metal walls were bare, a small corner boasted an impressive array of medals and commendations for bravery. Near these sat a large wooden desk covered in files, pencils, and an inbox full of papers. Sitting behind it, in a comfortable-looking leather chair, was the one-eyed, stern visage of Dr. Director. Kim Possible, it's good to see you again, she greeted the teen hero formally. Nice to see you too, Dr. Director, Kim replied as she stepped over to the desk and held out her hand. The older brunette took the offered hand in her own, and after a quick shake, told Kim to sit down in the smaller, less comfortable seat in front of her desk. Again, the redhead did so and stared at Dr. Director in anticipation. So what's up? She asked, forgoing her usual catchphrase out of respect. There's something I need to ask you, Dr. Director replied. Oh, what's that? She answered by pressing a button, and the wall behind her lighting up with pictures of Kim and Shego walking around the mall to buy clothes, going out for groceries, the few times Kim had convinced her to go to Bueno Nacho, and various other things they had done in the past 2 months. A sinking feeling suddenly overcame Kim, and she started to fidget around nervously. She should have known that eventually GJ would come about asking this, but she had been far too busy to really think about it. Even if she had, she doubted she would feel any less anxious than she did now. Mainly, I want to know why international hero Kim Possible is seen here out and about with international criminal Shego, a woman who has been as much of a threat to you as her former employer, Dr. Director asked, leaning forward to place her hands on the desk and staring at Kim with her one good eye. Kim squirmed even more as she tried to think of what to tell the intimidating woman. She knew the truth was the best way to go, but somehow telling it to the head of an international crime-fighting organization just didn't seem like enough. She thought she should have some better explanation than that. In many ways, it was like talking to Mr. Barkin when she was late for class. Well, Dr. Director asked again. It's like this, Kim started feeling uneasy. About 3 months ago, Dragon created a virus with mine and Shigo's DNA that was supposed to get me pregnant, but ended up getting her pregnant instead. Since it was my baby she's carrying, I convinced her to stay with my family until the baby comes to term. I'm hoping that even when the baby's born, Shego will stay there and, turn over a new leaf. Really? The other woman asked casually. Well, if that's your case, I wish you good luck. Kim blinked at the statement. That's it? You don't have any more questions or are not freaked out by it? Kim, when you've been in this business as long as I have, it takes a lot more than that to freak you out, she replied as she sat down. Although I will admit, I do have some concerns about this situation. You're not the only one, Kim sighed, but I am trying my best to keep Shego calm, and I really do think this will change her. I mean, she's already much more relaxed than she used to be. While that is one of my concerns, my primary one is for the well-being of your child. That's nice, but I don't think you have to worry. From what Shego said, the doctor told her the baby is healthy. That's not what I meant, Dr. Director said, slipping into her commander voice again. It's not? Kim, if we found out about this, then you can be certain others will as well. People tend to talk when two former enemies start acting nice towards each other. If word of Shigo's condition spreads through the villain community, well, I shudder to think what might happen. Again, Kim was shocked into silence. This too was something she knew she should have thought about, but didn't get around to. The other woman was right though. If any of her villains found out about the child Shego was carrying, they'd be relentless in their attacks. Even with her skills and Ron's help, she didn't know if she could stop them all. What is worse is she knows Shego will want to defend herself, but couldn't without endangering the baby. This was a sitch she definitely wasn't ready for. I'm sorry to have worried you, Dr. Director spoke, breaking Kim's thoughts, but this is the reality you have to face. I know. I just need time to plan some things. I'm sure we can come up with some things to keep an eye on Shego, but beyond that, I don't know what to do right now. I need to sleep on it. The head of Global Justice nodded. You're right, it is late, and I should have waited until morning to bring you here. I'm sorry. But as you said, now that you have it on your mind, you can think about what you're going to do. Rest assured that we here at Global Justice will do everything we can to make sure the baby is safe. Thank you, Kim said softly. After all the times you saved the world, it's the least we can do. Now, you should probably get going and get some sleep. It looks like you need it. Kim nodded slowly, then stood up and shook the woman's hand again. She then walked towards the double doors and was greeted by Will once more, who handed her off to another agent that would escort her home. Once they were out of sight, Will stepped into the office and up to the desk. I take it you were listening? Dr. Director said, matter-of-factly. Do you think she was telling the truth? He asked. I think so, yes. From what I've seen, Kim's not a very good liar, and it goes against who she is. And personally, I would like to see her succeed at reforming Shego. Oh? Think about it, Will. We know what both of these women are capable of. Now imagine if they're fighting on the same side. Our side. To top it off, they now have a child to raise, which would make anyone fight harder than ever before. Will's eyes grew wide as he took in this information. Dr. Director caught this and smirked. Exactly my point, she remarked, and then her face grew serious. Unfortunately, that also means that Kim won't have as much time to do the world-saving bit. We're going to need to step it up on our end. How are things going with the squad? There are still a few things to be ironed out, but it's going to be well enough, Will informed her. Though I'm not sure if it's a good idea to associate ourselves with those types. Times change, Will, and we have to change with them if we want to keep the peace. What about this other girl? We're keeping tabs on her, but to be completely honest, I don't think she's anywhere near Kim's level, Dr. Director smirked again. I'd be careful, Will. That sounded dangerously like a compliment. Agent Du balked at the remark, which caused his boss to give a small chuckle. There's a new life about to be brought into this world, Will. Let's do our best to make sure it's a safe place for it. Kim tried to stifle a yawn as she walked through the door of her house, but failed miserably. As she stumbled through the living room, she noticed the TV was on again with the volume turned down low. When she went to investigate, she found Shego laying on the couch with the remote still clutched in her hand, laying on the floor. She couldn't help but smile as she looked at the sleeping woman, her left hand resting protectively over a small bulge in her stomach. She watched the lights from the TV flicker over Shego's pale green skin, creating strange patterns as it did so. In her sleep, Shego looked so peaceful that it was hard to believe that she was the same person that helped Dr. Dragon place her in all those over-elaborate death traps. She looked vulnerable too, a word Kim knew she hated to be associated with, but those were the only things she could think of to describe her at this point. Peaceful, vulnerable, and glowing. Not just the light from the TV or in the way of her plasma powers, but an inner glow that seemed to come along with being pregnant. At least that's what she thought it was. Either way, it was nice to see, and actually seemed to make her appear more beautiful. Wait a minute, Kim thought. Did I really just use the word beautiful in regards to Shego? Dr. Director was right, I do need sleep. She was just about to leave when she looked down at the sleeping Shego again, focusing mostly on her left hand and more importantly what was under it. She remembered the other thing the eye-patched woman said to her, and a cold chill ran down her spine. Eventually her enemies would find out, and she would not have just the fight of her life on her hands, but also the lives of her baby and Shego. She sighed before she reached out and gently laid a hand over Shego's. I don't know what's going to happen when this gets out, but I promise you I'll protect you. She gave the hand and the bulge a gentle squeeze. Both of you. To be continued. Well, that was chapter 3 of Maternal Instinct, and holy crap, that was a long one. I think that was even longer than the last chapter. Holy crap. But anyway, yeah. Tell me what in the comments what you think about that outburst. You know the one I'm talking about, the Kim outburst. And comment back to me on how well I did that. Because I really tried my hardest on that one. I really did. Please be nice to me in the comments about that. Please. But anyway, I'm going to work on this. It'll hopefully be Friday, if not maybe Saturday. But yeah, stay tuned for later. Click on the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, click on the bell icon to be notified every time I post the next chapter. And I'll see you next time. Until then, Take care now. Bye bye then.